Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready to jump into this TikTok thing? It's pretty crazy, right? I mean, as of today, January 19th, 2025, no more TikTok in the US.
Yeah, it's a big deal and way more complicated than just poof, an app's gone. There's so much to unpack here, like all the legal stuff, the politics, the whole data security and free speech debate. It's like this window into how the US and China are grappling with technology and power on a global scale.
Okay, so, rewind for a sec. This isn't something that just popped up overnight, right? This whole TikTok drama has been brewing for years, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can trace it all the way back to 2020 when Trump was president. He was the first one to really make noise about TikTok, specifically about ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns it. He was worried about what if the Chinese government is using this app to get their hands on US user data?
And that's when we saw those first attempts to, ban TikTok completely or force them to sell it to an American company. But it wasn't exactly a smooth process, was it?
Not even close. It was a total roller coaster. You had all these legal battles, deals that fell apart, and then the wildest thing, Trump himself joined TikTok.
Wait, he joined TikTok?
Yeah, it was almost like he was trying to save it by joining it, which is kind of ironic,
Yeah, that's definitely a head scratcher. And then eventually in 2023, Biden signed that law saying ByteDance had to sell TikTok to a non-Chinese owner or face a complete ban.
Right. And then just last Friday, the Supreme Court actually upheld that law, which basically opened the door for today's shutdown.
Oh, and didn't the Biden administration also say they'd leave the actual enforcement of the law up to the incoming Trump administration?
Exactly. Which brings us to today. U.S. users open TikTok and boom, there's this message saying a law banning TikTok has been enacted.
Wow. I mean, that's like 170 million U.S. users. That's a ton of people who use that app all the time. You can't even imagine how they're feeling right now.
It's like, imagine your favorite app suddenly disappearing. Poof, gone. There's got to be some serious shock and, probably some anger mixed in there too, especially with that whole security debate hanging over TikTok for years.
Oh, yeah, right. Lawmakers have been pretty vocal about that whole thing, the idea that the Chinese government could be accessing user data, maybe even influencing what content people see.
And, these concerns aren't just coming out of nowhere. There are some things about TikTok's structure that do raise some red flags. Even though the company says, no, user data is stored in the U.S., there are experts who've pointed out some potential weaknesses in, the app's architecture, stuff that could actually allow for data access from China.
So it sounds like TikTok's defense, their whole we're safe and secure thing, might not be as airtight as they'd like everyone to believe.
Well, yeah, I mean, the CEO, Xiao Chu, he's been super consistent in saying TikTok is totally safe, that their users' data is protected. They've even gone so far as to say this ban is a direct attack on free speech, like a form of censorship.
So it's this clash, right? National security versus free speech. The company saying, hey, we're protecting user privacy, we're all about free speech. Well, the government's like, yeah, but what about national security?
Exactly. And the thing is, even within the Trump administration, there are these totally different viewpoints on TikTok.
Really? Like on both sides of the issue?
You had Brendan Carr, the guy who's about to be the FCC chair, who's been super critical of China and their potential influence over TikTok. But then you have someone like Elon Musk, right? He was publicly supporting TikTok, arguing that banning it would be the opposite of free speech.
So it's obviously way more complex than a simple China bad, TikTok bad kind of thing. There are all these nuances that we really need to dig into.
Totally agree. And we also can't forget about the actual users themselves. They're the ones who turned TikTok into this cultural phenomenon. How do you think they're dealing with all of this?
I've been seeing a lot of sadness and nostalgia online.
Right.
People are sharing their favorite TikToks and talking about how much they're going to miss the app. It was more than just an app for a lot of people. It was a way to be creative, a way to connect with each other. Some people even made money from it, built their whole careers on it.
Right. It's a huge disruption. And some people are dealing with it by making jokes, which is kind of interesting. There's this account called Liza Minnelli Outlives X that's been making jokes about how Liza Minnelli has outlived TikTok. It's obviously meant to be funny, but it also shows how deeply embedded TikTok had become in our culture.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like a real cultural moment, and it makes me wonder, is this actually the end of TikTok in the U.S.? Is there any chance it could come back?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The one possibility that everyone's talking about is that maybe, just maybe, they'll sell it to an American company. That would be a way for them to comply with the law and stay active in the U.S.
But even if they do sell it, isn't there still a chance that things could change? Like the whole vibe of TikTok, what made it so popular in the first place, could that be lost in the process?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, how do you guarantee a smooth transition? It's so uncertain. The whole future of the app is just up in the air. And that actually brings us to the next part of our deep dive. So we've been talking about like the immediate stuff, what's happening right now with TikTok being banned. But what about the bigger picture? Like, zoom out a bit. This whole thing has got to have some serious long-term consequences, right? Especially for the tech world.
Oh, for sure. It makes you think, if a platform as huge as TikTok can just get banned like that, what does it mean for other social media companies, especially those with ties to other countries, not just the U.S.?
It's like a major precedent has been set. It's a clear sign that the U.S. government's willing to step in and take action against platforms if they see them as, national security threats, even if those platforms are super popular.
That's got to be making other big tech companies pretty nervous, right? Like think about Facebook, Instagram, even YouTube. They all have tons of users all over the world, and they've had their own issues with data privacy and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. This whole TikTok thing could push lawmakers to start cracking down on everyone, like stricter rules about data collection, data storage, how that data gets shared and used, the whole 9 yards.
And then there's the whole U.S.-China relationship thing. I mean, banning TikTok, that's a pretty big move. It feels like it could really escalate tensions between the two countries.
Oh, without a doubt. It feeds into that whole narrative that's been building for a while now, the idea that the U.S. and China are in this tech war, this competition where nobody trusts each other.
And China's already come out and said they think the ban is totally political, that it goes against like free market principles and all that. Do you think this could actually turn into something bigger, like a trade war or even cyber attacks and stuff?
It's definitely possible. And that's what makes this whole situation so unpredictable and honestly a bit scary. Like, what if China decides to retaliate? It could have a huge impact on, well, everything, the global economy, online security, all of it.
This is way bigger than just politics and economics, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you think about like freedom of expression, what it means to have access to information online, especially in this day and age when everything's digital.
100%. The TikTok ban brings up all these questions about censorship, about whether governments should have the power to control what people can see and hear online. Like, what's stopping other countries from doing the same thing if they want to block platforms they don't like?
And it's not just governments, right? Social media companies themselves have so much power when it comes to controlling what we see online. They decide what gets shown to us, they moderate content, and they can even, like, silence people they don't agree with.
It's true. It makes you think about the ethics of it all, Like these companies have to walk this fine line between upholding free speech and at the same time trying to stop the spread of misinformation and harmful content. It's not easy.
Let's talk about the users for a minute, the people who actually use TikTok. What does this ban really mean for them, for the millions of people in the U.S. who used it to watch videos, connect with each other, or even make a living?
Yeah, on a very basic level, they've lost something that was a part of their lives, sometimes a big part. For a lot of people, TikTok was a way to be creative, to find community, to express themselves. And for some, it was even how they made money, their actual job.
It's more than just missing out on some funny videos, right? For some creators, TikTok was their whole livelihood.
Exactly. It's a direct hit to their income, their way of life. They have to figure out something else, find another platform, adapt to this constantly changing digital world.
So, taking all of this into consideration, what do you think? What does this mean for the future of social media? Like, if a platform as big and as popular as TikTok can just disappear, does that mean no platform is truly safe?
It definitely suggests that we're moving towards a future where social media is going to be way more regulated, maybe even controlled. It could end up with the internet becoming more fragmented, more localized. We might see platforms changing what they offer depending on what country you're in, all to comply with different laws and rules.
And that could lead to people being stuck in these echo chambers, right?
Right.
Where all you see is information that your government approves of, stuff that aligns with their ideology.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. And it highlights how important it is to fight for an open internet, to push back against censorship in all its forms.
This all feels pretty overwhelming, to be honest. Is there anything we can actually do as regular users, or are we just stuck watching all of this unfold at the mercy of governments and big tech companies?
We're not powerless. The first thing is to stay informed, to actually understand what's going on, what the different arguments are, and what the consequences could be.
So, like, go beyond just reading the headlines.
Right.
Actually do your own research, think critically, and form your own opinions.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to speak up. Talk about these issues. Share your views. Contact the people who represent you in government. Let them know how you feel about online freedom and responsible regulation.
And support groups that are fighting for digital rights, groups that hold both governments and tech companies accountable.
The internet is incredibly powerful. It's how we communicate, how we connect with each other, and it can be a powerful tool for change. We all have a role to play in shaping its future.
Okay, so we've talked about the immediate fallout of the TikTok ban, and we've explored some of the bigger long-term consequences. But there's still one big question that we need to address. What about the possibility of TikTok being sold to an American company? Could that actually happen?
Right. Is that the key to bringing TikTok back to life in the US, or are we just delaying the inevitable? That's what we'll dig into next.
Okay, so we're back. We've covered a lot of ground on this TikTok ban, the lead up, the security stuff, of politics, what it all means for users. But the big question still hanging out there is, can TikTok actually make a comeback in the US?
Yeah, it all comes down to that sale, right? Selling it off to an American company. That seems to be the easiest way for them to follow the US law and hopefully calm everyone down about the security risks.
But even if that happens, even if they find a buyer and the sale goes through, it's not like everything just goes back to normal, right? I mean, there are still a lot of things that could go wrong.
Oh, yeah, tons of hurdles. One of the biggest things is whether a US-owned TikTok would even be the same TikTok. You know what I mean? TikTok got so big because of that algorithm they have. It's really good at showing you stuff you're interested in and all the different creators they have. And, of course, how they're so good at picking up on trends, what's cool right now.
It's like that special something that's really hard to copy. So would a new owner mess with that algorithm? Would they change how they moderate content? I mean, is there a risk of losing that, creative energy, that authenticity that made TikTok so popular in the first place?
You hit the nail on the head. Those are the exact questions everyone's asking. A new owner might feel like they have to make TikTok more like other U.S. social media platforms, and if they do that, they could lose some of the things that made it unique and appealing. It's a tough line to walk.
And then there's the whole trust issue, right? Users were already kind of iffy about TikTok's data security even before all this happened. Would having a U.S. owner magically fix that?
I don't know about magically. Rebuilding trust takes time. It takes effort. It depends on how open and honest the new owner is, if they're really serious about protecting user data and privacy, if they can prove they've changed.
That's a tall order. Not only do they have to convince users to trust them again, they also have to convince the government, the lawmakers, and all those regulators who've been scrutinizing TikTok for years.
And, let's not forget the elephant in the room, the whole U.S.-China rivalry. Even with a U.S. owner, TikTok could still get caught in the middle of all that tension.
Right. It could become a bargaining chip, something they fight over in political negotiations, or something that causes even more disagreements about data security and national security in the future.
The takeaway here is that technology, politics, and global power are all intertwined. It's a really complicated situation with high stakes.
So what can we do? It feels like we're just along for the ride, stuck in the middle of these powerful forces.
It's easy to feel powerless, yeah. But I think the most important thing is to stay informed, to keep paying attention to what's happening. Don't just ignore it. Read different perspectives, form your own opinions.
Don't just accept what you see in the headlines or, believe everything you hear. Be critical, think for yourself,
Exactly, and use your voice. Talk about these issues. Get in touch with your representatives in government. Support organizations that are fighting for digital rights and responsible tech policies.
It might feel like just one voice doesn't make a difference, but when we all speak up, we can have a real impact. We have a responsibility to use our voices to shape the future of social media, the future of the internet.
This whole TikTok thing has really shown us how fragile and complicated the online world is. It's a wake-up call for all of us to really think about the information we see online and to be more proactive in creating the kind of online world we want to live in.
As we're wrapping up this deep dive, I'm feeling a lot of things. I'm cautious because the situation is so complex and the stakes are so high.
I get that. But I'm also optimistic because this is a chance for us to have these conversations, to learn from what's happened, and to take action. We can shape the future of technology, and I believe that if we stay informed, if we keep talking about these issues, and if we work together, we can create a better digital world for everyone, a world that's more open, more equitable, and more empowering.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope this has been insightful and made you think. Stay curious, keep learning, and use your voice. Until next time, keep diving deep.